Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 131. Are we the baddies? Where we will be responding to a patron request. That's how I should put
Mm-hmm.
it.
Well, yeah,
Or
well, I mean, the thing is that the patrons give me a lot of suggestions and I choose one and then we do it. And yeah, it's very appreciated. And completely on an unrelated note, um, usually they help us out for the fundraiser. I'm just saying that it's completely unrelated. Boy, that sounded not suspicious at all.
I
Okay.
know, right?
All right, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. So
Dark
I'm just making
matter, I
sure
think.
everything's working. It looks like it is. Yeah. So this is a video by I guess he was, a pretty big or prominent atheist YouTuber back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
He's got about 800,000 subs, so still, nothing to sneeze at, named Dark Matter 2525.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's facing a bit of a conundrum. But I mean that's a sort of a secondary discussion. But essentially, he made a video called "Why I Stopped Being Anti-Woke," and this was well, I don't know if who's the person who put this through. Is this Great Indoors?
No, it was actually Richard Beer who made this
Oh, okay, it
suggestion.
was Richard Bier that put this. Did he have like? I'm just curious because I kind of want to know like how I should come at this discussion. Like, did he say like why he wants us to talk about this? Like
Uh, maybe a
what
break.
his thinking on it is, or if he watched
No,
it.
no, no. Richard Beer often doesn't elaborate. It's great
Fair enough.
indoors because he's so Dutch. He's like, I need you to do this and this and
So it's
this
not
and this.
Richard Bier. It's Great Indoors.
No, no, it wasn't. It was Richard Beer. I'm saying that Richard Beer tends to not elaborate, not really give
Oh,
too much. Just be like, hey, here's something you could respond to without much commentary. It's great indoors that does the significant amount of contextual information about what specifically he thinks
yeah.
requires
I
comment.
get it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a bit of a
All right.
different style. I guess we're just whatever we want. The
Sure.
overall discussion is whether or not we should, I guess, be opposed to woke. Correct me if
Well,
I'm wrong.
he's basically making the claim that he is no longer opposed to woke, which implies that he once was.
Mm,
And I think that one way to look at this before we jump in is that people are saying woke, but they're really just talking about feminism as it
mhm,
just basically gets applied in the broader lexicon. Like you take like the framework that feminism created and you see the success of that, and then people go, oh well, what if we took that and we applied it in this other
mm,
way? And then that's where you get intersectional feminism, which is still feminism, right? It's
mhm.
just intersectional, and you end up with the more simplified version of that, which is called woke.
Well, it
And
seems like intersectional feminism basically is just creating a hierarchy. Women are still well above men. In fact, I
sure,
think they're well above all
yeah,
men because eventually every category of man in the intersectional hierarchy is considered to be the man of their respective group, the white men of their respective group. So it's all just
I've been
feminism
s- I've been saying that for years. Like ever
with
since
flavors.
intersectionality happened, when Black Lives Matter was going on in 2020 and they were burning cities down, and I was like, I just went to the website and they're feminists. I mean, it's a
We did
feminist
that.
movement. Yeah, we
We
did that. We went to the
we
website.
looked to we looked at
Like
the website
their
well before the Black Lives Matter
mhm.
Summer of Love, and we
Yeah,
were pointing it out.
before that, yes.
Yeah.
It was like around the Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin days. And
Mm,
yeah, we've been saying it for the whole time. Now, it's basically become so like commonly used these days. You know,
mhm,
wokeism, not intersectionality. I think intersectionality as a term is like, it's more academic. People don't use it in their day-to-day. But when they say woke, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about
mhm,
intersectional feminism, fourth wave feminism,
mhm.
which is the current feminism we're in right now. So anyway,
Yeah.
so when Dark Matter 2525 says he is stopping being anti-woke, he's basically saying I'm going to be a feminist again.
Mm,
Whether he knows it or not, but I think he does. I think on some level, a lot of these guys, it's really hard to let that go. And I don't mean feminism itself. I mean like the what
The
is it?
identity.
The identity
Of
of
judging
being,
yourself in terms
yeah.
of protecting and
It's
providing
like,
for women. What a surprise men have trouble letting that go. And their
yeah,
own
well, women
particular
do too
brand.
because it's
Yeah.
in their own interests. But like,
Mhm.
definitely, and that's the thing. He would have to reject the foundation on which feminism was built. So
Mhm.
it's not even really feminism. There's like something deeper that has to be challenged. But anyway, so this video is called "Why I Stopped Being Anti-Woke." I got some time codes. Let me grab my notepad here. Somebody spamming me.
Oh. Oh no.
It's probably Israel asking for more money. But anyway.
Ooh. Ooh.
No, I'm
Oh, let
just,
me do the things. Okay. Yeah, it's
yeah,
a
do
little
the
bit more
things.
casual
Go
on
ahead. Do
Sundays.
the things.
Sorry, guys. Please, if you have any commentary on, or if you want to send us a tip, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. It's the very best way for you to send us any kind of tip you want to send us, any kind of funds, and be able to send us a comment with that amount. So that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And as our thank you to you, we will thank you for your tip and read your comment. And then we also have the monthly fundraiser open at feedthebadger.com/support. Thank you to Mrs. Anna Ark, who put in $5 just before the show. And
Thank
also
you.
thank you to Anonymous, who put in 2,000. Thank you, Anonymous. You
Thank
are
you. Come again.
anonymously great. And yeah, so thank you. And let's get started.
All right. So first, he's gonna try to define woke. So we know for you always got to start with defining your terms, and I think that's worthy of some discussion. So I'm gonna play this clip.
Yeah. Ominous
Is
music.
being woke good or bad? Well, it depends greatly on what you mean by woke. Now, I've scoured the internet for a consistent definition of woke, and what I found was that perception of what the term stands for is very clearly demarcated along political affiliation. Left leaning people tend toward an approximation of the first definition in Webster's dictionary, which is, quote, aware of and actively attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice, unquote. While right-leaning people tend toward the second definition, quote, politically liberal or progressive, as in matters of racial and social justice, especially in a way that is considered unreasonable or extreme.
Okay. Are we
What does it mean to you, Allison?
well, honestly, there's one thing to be concerned about issues of progressive justice, and there's another thing to be inching towards criminalizing your fellow man and regarding them as a problem that needs to be corrected. And the other thing is that I notice that anyone with a shred of power, institutional power, that's media, corporations, government, will use these terms in order to offload their responsibilities onto their employees and their customers. I don't know if you've noticed that. And while I suspect that they have no genuine interest in being progressive, in caring about anyone, and if they do, their interest is in caring about the smallest subsection of the population in order to justify not caring about and actively persecuting and blaming the largest amount of people possible. So to me, to my mind, woke has nothing to do with actually helping people. I think people are helped by strong individual rights. Okay. Woke has everything to do with criminalizing your fellow man and encouraging or even supporting further and further government intrusion over individual rights and destruction of individual rights. So to me, woke is basically using the collective to destroy the individual. And at the end of the day, we're all individuals, right? we are all individuals. So that when we buy into these collective ideologies and buy into the idea that we give up our individual rights in order to save abstractions, we are all degrading everybody's position in society, including the people we supposedly are helping. And so I would say that woke is basically using these collective ideas of victimhood, collective ideas of guilt to erode individual liberties. But individual liberties are what protect us ultimately, all of us. Okay, so that's my opinion. That's the way I'm seeing it used. Now, he might be talking about the definition itself. I mean, you could look at the word's definition and say, hey, it's
Well,
advocacy for these different groups of people that are allegedly marginalized, except for men.
well,
Statistically
that's exactly
marginalized
what he
except for
did.
men.
He said he just went to Webster's dictionary, and basically he's saying these people say this thing and these people say this thing, and they're both in the dictionary, and I don't know, maybe he's going to say they're both wrong and I'm floating above everything, or he's going to side with one, probably the first definition, because he's abandoning being anti-woke. But yeah,
Allegedly.
he's just going with the dictionary
Right.
definition. So
Right.
that's basically the equivalent of going to Wikipedia to get your facts. So whatever
Okay.
that's worth.
So, I mean, I think there's the definition that, I mean, honestly, you could use the Nazi definition of National Socialism, and it would just be advocacy for the interests of the German people. And yet, how it's applied is actually really critical. So we can go with the dictionary definition of woke, but how it's applied tends to be really critical, right?
Yeah.
If it's applied in a divisive manner to justify the destruction of individual liberties, that really becomes more about what it does than what it is. And what it does is apparently horrible. So, okay, let's
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. He's
it's okay.
stuck on what it is or what it's defined as. Yeah, but what does it do? Like,
Well, that's the thing. He's trying to crush the opposition to it. Which is essentially trying to crush opposition to intersectional feminism. But what I would say woke is, in another way of describing it, is simply critical consciousness, which is like one of the things that these people do is they try to, like these progressives, they try to say, well, what is woke? And if you can't define it, then they will just call it a dunk and say they won. So I think it's a very simple thing to say it's critical consciousness, which means it refers to the process of becoming aware of and critically examining the social and economic structures that shape one's thoughts, beliefs, and actions. It involves recognizing the ways in which ideology, particularly false consciousness is considered by the people who engage in critical consciousness as sort of like the mainstream consciousness. You know, concepts like human rights, property rights, masculinity, femininity, family, children, owning your own business, whatever it is. Those are all false consciousness because they are, even though they are what we want to, sort of demonstrate, it doesn't go along with the critical consciousness, which is essentially designed as a tool of revolution to divide us and to basically make us look at the world in terms of power dynamics and power structures and who has it and who doesn't, which is why feminism is so effective, because it always places men as the people with the most agency, the most power, and the most desire to dominate over women. And they cannot let that go. And I guarantee you that Dark Matter 2525 is one of those people. So false consciousness refers to the ways in which members of the proletariat, or whatever, the oppressed class, unwittingly misperceive their real position in society and systematically misunderstand their genuine interests within the social relations of production under, whatever the system is, patriarchy, capitalism, white supremacy, etc. This false consciousness is reinforced by the dominant ideology, which naturalizes and legitimates the existence of social classes and the exploitation of the working class by the dominant or oppressing class. So what that is woke in its simplistic form, it's critical consciousness, and that's it. So when he says, I challenge you to define it, it's like, that's it. I didn't even go to the Webster's dictionary. You can just like read, like Karl Marx, Theodore Adorno, Hegel, whatever. there's plenty of shit. Bell hooks, it's everywhere, you know? So anyway,
Okay, let's go.
see. Let's yeah, let me just make sure I'm going to the time codes now. So
All right.
yeah, there's more to this one. So let me just turn off our thing so we don't interrupt, and I'll play another 30 seconds.
Unquote. Now, it originally meant the first definition, but throughout recent political discourse, the term was co-opted and turned into the second definition in order to disparage.
Well, nobody changed the definition.
Mm.
What happened was the first definition became so obnoxious that now when you just say woke, it just makes it's not like people said we're going to co-opt this term and make it mean something different. They just saw the outcome. It's like feminism.
Yeah.
Let's say feminism, because some people get like hung up on like using the right word. Let's just use feminism as another term. He's basically saying feminism used to mean, the equality of the sexes, and now it's a disparaging term because it's been co-opted. No, it hasn't been changed. It's just that now when you say feminism, if it annoys people, there's reason for it. It's like that. So like there's actually a change in people's reaction to feminism because now we know what it really means. And that's why we're annoyed. We didn't change it. We didn't co-opt it. That's like men's rights activists actually did the same thing in the opposite direction. The feminists labeled us MRAs because they wanted to use it as a pejorative. And they thought that the concept of someone who advocated for the rights and legal protections and fairness of men was so absurd and ridiculous that they were like, we'll just call them what they are, and that'll be hilarious. And they did. And then we were like, oh, okay. And we just went with it. Yeah, that makes sense.
There was two responses to it. One response was, oh my God, I can't believe in this patriarchy that puts the rights of men first, you've called me the very worst thing you can, which is somebody who puts the rights of men in any position at all, cares about them at all. Like amazingly. And so there was a huge portion of people who just fled. They just were like, oh no, I can't handle it. They're calling us concerned about the rights of men. We got to flee, and then there were just a hard, stubborn core who were like, we don't care what you call us. Call us what you want. We're going to continue to advocate for the concerns of men, for male victims of domestic violence, false accusations, sexual assault, for issues in the family court that men face and conscription and all of this other stuff. We're going to advocate for these issues. And it doesn't matter what you call us. That's essentially the difference. Like, it's not even really an identity. It just reflects people who are absolutely stubborn about advocating for these issues and aren't going to be scared away by what feminists call us. Okay.
Right. And the thing is that like it seems to be a fixation on this particular term woke, right? That he's trying to respond to. But the truth is that none of these things get like, there isn't like a secret society of people that basically take a term and say, we're going to repurpose this. And then they repurpose it. And then it like the branding gets damaged. What happened is, you can still find people who have made songs about wokeness in using the first definition because at the time they saw it as a self-righteous, like, morally good thing. And then the reality of their beliefs came out and people started calling it what it is, just like men's rights activists, just like feminists. And then people saw the truth of it. And the only reason why they backed off of the woke label is because it wasn't good for their brand. What I've often said that the culture war that we're in is ultimately a marketing war, and the marketing tools keep changing because these people, their beliefs don't change, they don't compromise, they're very aggressive, they're very hostile, their entire framework is upside down, and yet they think that they can win by just rebranding shit. That's why they go with new waves of feminism come out, new terms for patriarchy come out called kyriarchy, new terms for, their progressive communist ideals come out. They have words like tanky, and they have social democrat, and they have, woke, and they have progressive, but like their actions and beliefs are the same. And so what happens is after a while, we just call it whatever they're calling it. And they're like, well, that's not good for our brand. It must be your fault. It's like, no, you haven't changed. Like,
criticize it.
Yeah. yeah, we're just calling out what you're doing and criticizing it. Like they've tried to do the same thing with men's rights activists. They've done it with incel. They've done it with Christian. They've done it with men. They've done it with conservative. Like they've taken terms and they've turned them into pejoratives too. But the difference is how you react to that branding, right? Do you recoil and say we got to change it? We need a new word, or do you just say, yeah, I guess that's what I am. So what? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that is
you know, like
interesting. Yeah,
you
because the
know,
thing is
like
that they're
incels,
saying,
like they're just calling everybody that. They're calling married men with families incels. They're just
yeah,
using it, you know?
because if you think about it, the term has changed so much. Well, essentially, it was just feminist women's libers, feminists, and then it became PC woke, or no, sorry, PC social justice, and now woke, and they keep changing the term. They keep changing it. Whereas everybody they attack, like men's rights activists, have not changed what we call ourselves in like decades. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we haven't changed. Maybe we like when I talk about men's issues advocates, I try to be like, because some of these things aren't about rights, they're about issues that men face. And then some people don't want to be called an activist because
Because they're not
either
picketing
they're
on the
not
street
they're not
or
doing they're
yeah.
not activizing. So that if you feel like, so it's men's issues advocates or men's rights advocates, but the names are all what we do. And yet they
Mm-hmm.
keep hiding behind all of these euphemisms. And when somebody comes out and starts calling them out for their aggressive, predatory, and bullying behavior and their discrimination against half the human race, they run away into a new name. It's like a corporate shell game. You know how corporations have multiple names, so you don't know who to sue?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. Right.
and it's very deceitful behavior.
Oh, exactly. It's like shell identities. You know, when
Yes.
you corner them on something, like, no, I'm not a tanky. I'm not a Stalinist. I'm a Maoist or whatever. It's like you're just moving the pieces around, but I can see it in
The
your actions
behavior
and what
that
you
you're
do. Right. It's your behavior.
That's why I'm saying
So,
the name doesn't, like, the definition doesn't matter. It's what they do.
mm-hmm.
Okay, and they understand it. Like, okay, so the definition of cop is someone who a policeman is someone who upholds the peace. Is that what police always do? Like,
Right.
yeah. There's a difference there. It's not always the definition. It's what these individuals who are attracted to these concepts do. And like I said, it is bullying. It is often deceitful. It is exclusionary. It's extremely um archaic. It's like creating this moral hierarchy and excluding people based on it, excluding people from the right to speak. So we're somehow going back and constructing a moral hierarchy based on people's ancestry is an advancement? No, that's like caste systems and aristocracy and religions of old. Like, that's not a movement towards anything new. It is a movement towards visiting the sins of the father and the son, which is something that I think we dealt with like two millennia ago. We're going to reverse to BC behavior. Like, what the hell? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so let's keep going.
All right, I just jumped ahead a bit, so let's jump to this next time.
Your groups.
It's a basis for madness. When people say the gay community, who are you talking about? It's like, women think this. Oh, really? 50% of the species all agree on something. Blacks say this. Really?
And some defined it as the perfect opposite, being restricted from assigning viewpoints to entire groups.
People always ask, what is the definition of woke? Well, the definition of woke, as I mentioned in the book, is the making sacred of historically marginalized race, gender, and sexual identity groups. That's it.
Now that last,
Well, how is that? Okay.
He's saying that these things are contradictory somehow.
Those things are not Okay, let's go back again and listen to them again.
All right, I'm going to go back to...
Don't lie right to my face.
Yeah, Douglas Murray talking to Jordan Peterson here.
Yeah.
I think if I play it from here, it's okay.
Community, who are you talking about? It's like, women think this. Oh, really? 50% of the
No, it's
species
more
all
like
agree
women
on something.
experience this.
Yeah, it's true.
Black people experience, but that translates into them thinking. And then, well, it's not really women
Well,
or black
no,
people who think. It's white men, let's be honest, who they're saying they know what they think. It's
yeah.
black and women who experience certain things as a result of white men's intentions and motivations, which intersectionality gives you a complete clear window into and ability to judge. Like, they essentially, what they're saying is black people and black women and white women have this experience, and they have this experience because of these motivations by white men, these motivations and thinking and logic by white men. So the intersectional stack somehow makes them telepathic and able to read white men's minds. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And impugn their motives. Okay, but anyway, that's a little bit of an
All right.
aside.
Well, but I think he's saying essentially these people speak for large groups of people. So when he says women think this, he's saying that these people speak for women as a group, like half of the population or whatever the group happens to be in the moment. But anyway, I'm just trying to clarify things.
Yeah. No,
people.
fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's basically,
right.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Blacks say this. Really?
And some defined it as the perfect opposite, being restricted from assigning viewpoints to entire groups.
People always ask, what is the definition of woke? Well, the definition of woke, as I mentioned in the book, is the making sacred of historically marginalized race, gender, and sexual identity groups. That's it.
Okay. All right. How did he come to that conclusion?
That these were opposites?
Yeah, I mean, because one is saying, honestly, one is saying that you can't speak for an entire group. And he's not saying that you can't speak for an entire group is woke, right? He's saying that's not woke. He's saying saying, okay, well, I can't speak for an entire group is the opposite of woke. And now he's saying that this guy who is defining woke is defining it in the opposite of this guy who's defining the opposite of woke. Well,
yeah, I mean, well,
if
okay.
we popped open this man's skull, would there just be steaming oatmeal in?
Does anybody know who this guy is on the screen? Because I know who he is, but I can't remember his name. He's written books about this stuff. So Douglas Murray in the previous clip was basically talking about how astounding it is that you have people who are part of the progressive intersectional feminist left that are basically saying, I speak for group X, right? They're basically, treating them as a monolith.
As a monolith.
And speaking for them, or at least and that's part of the thing that I read before, where, if you are a part of that monolith that they're speaking for, but you don't have the right ideas, it's because you have false consciousness. That's what I was saying when I read about critical consciousness, is about making people become conscious or awake or woke about the way of the world, right? It's like this secret that only these people have, and they're trying to wake you up to it. That's what woke means, okay? And so if you don't have the appropriate consciousness, then you're not woke, but you are deserving to be made awake, made aware of this stuff. So when Douglas Murray is talking about is people who are saying this is what women are supposed to feel. I mean, they'll say that they do because it's trying to gaslight women that might be watching. That's what the purpose of all that is, right? Like in the Barbie movie, when America Ferrera does that, rant that everyone loves so much, well, women do, about how hard it is to be a woman, it's a gaslighting tactic to make other women who may not have thought about that too much think about it and say, oh yeah, you know what? I do feel insufficient in every possible way. She must be onto something. It's intended to try to raise, I put in quotes because it's just gaslighting, but a woman's consciousness or awareness of their own victimhood. And if they don't absorb that or internalize that, then it fails, right? But that's what the attempt is. Now, I don't think that Douglas Murray's conception and this guy, who is this guy? I'm sorry, I don't remember. But I don't believe that these are opposites. I think this guy is basically sort of reinforcing that because he's saying it's making sacred marginalized groups. So
Okay.
in order to do that though, you have to make them into a monolith. So you say all black people need my help. I'm going to make them sacred. I'm going to advocate
Make
for
them
them. I'm
into
going
a
to speak for
monolith.
them. But in order for me to do that, I have to basically tell you what they believe or what their experience is.
Yes, but my point is that he's taking a man who is saying this is the opposite of woke, which it would essentially, well, he's describing the opposite of woke, or he is describing woke as speaking for everybody. So the opposite of woke is saying, well, you can't speak for everyone in a gigantic group, right?
Yeah.
And he's comparing that with this guy who's saying making sacred, and not making, like you were saying, not making sacred every opinion of that group, but specifically making sacred how that group and the people within that group that support the intersectional system, right? The intersectional hegemony. And so, yeah, you're right. They're completely compatible, right? And the fact is that he's saying that these are the opposite. I don't understand the logic behind it. I'm trying to
I think
grasp.
he's gonna try and get into it in the next
Okay,
bit.
okay.
So
But
we'll
here's
play
the
it.
other thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before you continue. Now, one of the issues with all of this is you have this logical system or this hegemonic system, intersectionality. And you're right. It does not advocate for every black person, only those black people who buy into the intersectional framework. All right. Any black person who doesn't is marginalized as having false consciousness. So it really has nothing to do with advocating black people or white or women, unless you assume that all black people and all women have the same opinions and have the same experience. And then any woman who says, no, I don't, you silence. So, but what's interesting to me is it's using all of these groups, and it is removing any individual voice of any individual within these groups that is outside the framework of the intersectional hegemony. And at the end of the day, the people who use the intersectional hegemony are governments, media, and corporations to justify their overreach over the individual. Have you noticed
And
that?
schools, yeah.
And schools
Academia,
to justify their control and their destruction of individual liberties. So it's really interesting because the thing is that somehow during the time of Our Lady the Coof, somehow those groups who were minorities, who were the least receptive to some of the suggested medical intervention, shall we say, they were the least receptive. Somehow they became white supremacists using the powers of intersectionality. So you take you take an attitude that is held majority black, and if it is against government, academia, big pharma, the Department of Education, if it's against those big bodies that control, those black people suddenly become white supremacists, even though white people are more likely to hold the opinion than black people. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So this is what I've noticed. If there is a situation where black people hold an opinion and are more likely to hold it, and it is counter to any large interests by these large institutions, and white people are more likely to be, okay, yeah, that's fine. What do? You submit. They will say that the black people are white supremacists. You see, they are literally using these terms to silence all opposition, regardless of how ridiculous it is. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me use a really ridiculous example. Let's say we reinstitute slavery and all black people are against it, but the corporations are for it. Because white people would be for it, being against slavery would become white supremacy. Because it benefits the corporations, they'll say being against slavery is white supremacy. This is how they operate. Right? They are determining what is acceptable speech and what are acceptable positions. It has absolutely nothing to do with the opinions of most black people. They will tell you your opinions. And if you don't have those
just
opinions,
like feminists
you're a
tell
white
women
supremacist.
what their opinions should be, right?
Yes. And if you don't have those opinions, you're a male supremacist. And it's not
Mhm.
just feminism. Feminism is a mouthpiece for forced consumption, forced corporate consumption. It is a mouthpiece for corporate and government collusion. Like they're just basically
And redistribution of wealth.
and redistribution. Like it's like, wake up, guys.
You mean
Wake
get
up to
woke?
wake up. Wake up to wake up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's
All
go.
right. Okay, so let's play some more. He's gonna get into his reasoning. I'm gonna turn off our response thing so that people don't, because the thing is, if it switches scenes when we talk, then the audio from the video it cuts
mute.
out. Yeah. So anyway, let's go.
Now, that last clip is very interesting to me because he admits something I don't think he intended to admit. And the word sacred is what led him into his own trap. He talks about historically marginalized groups such as gender, race, and sexual orientation as being sacred. In other words, unassailable, unable to blaspheme against. But here's my question. What legitimate criticism or negative statement can be levied at an entire race or an entire gender or an entire sexual orientation? Now, if someone said, quote, the problem with black people is ABC, or the problem with women is XYZ, wouldn't we immediately recognize that as racists or sexist? Because you're shoehorning everyone of those groups into a box of problems based on
Let me
their
finish
Okay.
there.
immutable characteristics.
Patriarchy? Men are to blame? Like, is he absolutely against all of these statements? No. So yes, he will continue to support those statements that support his identity as a man, as the alpha and omega of everybody's existence. But of course, he'll question those statements but that's not what this man is saying either. He's not saying that black people need to take responsibility for the gestalt black that comes out of all of the black people. Like, that's ridiculous. He's saying you can't use this intersectional system to excuse the individual responsibility of individual black people on their individual actions. Likewise for women. You cannot use this intersectionality to excuse the individual actions of individual women. And that's what he's calling out. Nobody is saying that black people need to pay reparations for white people, like, or that women need to pay reparations for matriarchy. Nobody sane is saying those things, but presumably sane people are saying the reverse. And that's what's being called out. All right? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, yeah, he's just straw manning.
Well, yeah,
straw manning the
I will
criticism.
say this too, because there is this thing. He's like, the problem with women or the problem with black people. But what if there is a problem, but I would phrase it differently? Like, what if I said, you know what would fix the problems or most of the problems in the black population of the United States, which is not the same as saying the problem with black people. You see, he's already like strawmanning the case because he's making it sound more inflammatory than it needs to be. Because if I said, well, we need to do something about the broken family and the fatherlessness and the abortions and, like, you know, all of these other issues that are probably, you know, the predecessors or the progenitors for, you know, real on the ground problems that blacks in this country deal with all the time, like gang violence and drug abuse and so on. But if I were to say, well, I want to fix this problem, but part of it's going to come down to black people taking some responsibility, or at least we got to talk about that. He would say, well, isn't that racist though? So it's like, well, do we, because that's the same thing with women. If I said, well, I don't want to put it, I wouldn't frame it as the problem with women, but I might say, you know, here's a problem that a lot of modern women have in the dating space or with, you know, I don't know, whatever it is, right?
Problem with women.
Yeah,
like,
but
honestly,
like that does, and it's like, what if we want to fix something? that is a problem, why can't we point out the problem? Like what that because it's
Exactly.
racist or sexist. And like why doesn't like I know this guy like he's supposed to be really smart because he's like sitting in front of his microphone calmly, you know, and like talking like very
As
with
opposed
big
to me being a
words. And
chipmunk.
no, and look, it just irritates me because this is just like big brain framing. But if he hasn't even questioned whether or not the words sexist or racist are useful when it comes to actually addressing shit, because that's part of this whole gaslighting thing. He's never even questioned those things. Then maybe you're just not at the level that you think you are. I mean, maybe your audience probably loves you. Probably they do because they're just like, oh, I just want to feel better than everybody else. This is just a different kind of supremacy. It's just intellectual top-down supremacy. I'm smarter than you guys. You are all dumb, backwards hicks that, you know, I don't know, thump your Bibles and whatever he thinks, right? But I'm the really smart guy that doesn't hate women or black people, and I'm going to tell you how you're a bad person. It's just like it's so dull.
Yeah, it is a bit dull, but it's also confusing. Because maybe confusing is the wrong word, because he's doing exactly what he's calling other people out. When you talk about sexism, eh, you are talking about men's culpability. Let's be honest. And when you're talking about racism, you're specifically talking about white men's culpability. Let's be honest. So you are it's okay to Borgify. It's okay to collectivize as long as it's directed at white cis het men. You know, I would be fine if everybody just walked away from the collective thinking and simply took people on an individual basis. Now, that is a very high bar for when it comes to the sexes, but I mean, I would be fine with that. I don't advocate the idea that all women are in a conspiracy to oppress men. I don't think that that's realistic, but yet there are people out there who genuinely believe that men are in some kind of conspiracy to oppress women. They genuinely believe that about half the human race. Are you going to call these people out, or are you going to continue to call out the people calling them out?
Yeah.
And then you're going to say, oh, well, I'm calling them out based on the fact that they're going to say these universalizing statements about large portions of the human race. How dare you call people out, feminists out, for their universalizing statements about men? That's making a universalizing statement about feminists, herp-a-derp. Like,
you can't do that.
You can't. Well, watch.
Feminism is a monolith. It's one of the good monoliths.
Come and stop me.
It's like the Washington Monument. It's a good monolith. A big white monolith. Okay. So let's play some more of this.
Literally.
I jumped ahead because he goes into this big like anecdote about his life, and I just don't care.
Nobody cares.
But yeah,
I mean, he cares in his audience.
He's gonna point out like hypocrisy. So let's because that's another thing these people do is they love trying to like make you look like a hypocrite, and then they just slam the mic down. Yeah, done. You know. But let's continue.
About laughing at anger, it was a movement about getting angry. Suddenly, the rule that inspired "you mad, brah" no longer applied. The rules changed when the offense changed. Now the winner was whoever could get the most angry. But that was still a double standard.
I'm actually finding it uncomfortable to listen to him.
Why? Because he sounds
I don't know,
funny?
just on some instinctive level, I'm like, this is a guy to get the fuck away from. I don't know why. Like, it's just, it's like, I'm like, I want to leave now. I don't want to be in the same room as this dude. There's just such a level of subliminal hatred and anger in the things that he's saying. I don't know.
I didn't jump ahead enough. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just, I'm sorry about that's just a gut response.
You're just having a gut response. It's cool. All right, let me
deal with my gut
response. This is the face of a billion thumbnails still used on uploads and memes to this day.
Yep.
Have you ever seen the source material? It's quite short.
exist. There's not rapists coming into just because they're refugees doesn't mean they're fucking rapists. And no, but they're raping people in Germany. You know, my parents are immigrants. My fucking parents are immigrants. No, not even a fucking big percentage. Tiny.
You know how many women in the U.S.
get raped? Do you know how many?
1 in every 3
Fuck
women.
ton, a
That
fuck
means
ton.
that all Americans
That's
are
a
rapists.
that's a
Like,
crisis.
they had a lot of
There's a rape
It's a
crisis.
crisis
Exactly.
here in the
Exactly.
U.S.
But if you
Yeah.
look at what a lot of the rapes that are being reported, that is not a fact.
Wow, that number
So-
keeps creeping higher, and it's not 1 in
Yeah.
3. It's 1 in
It-
3 are stalked, subject to domestic violence, and also sexual abuse. It's not rape. 1 in 3 are raped. So that's incorrect.
But the
And
1 in
what is-
3 statistic is bullshit anyways, because it's based on that Mary Koss study.
No,
So,
it's
like,
not.
the-
It's based on the CDC, and it includes a whole raft of things. And if you actually look at male, the situation for men, it's very similar. Despite the fact that feminists are trying to make it invisibilize or make invisible male victims, they're still finding like 1 in 4 in terms of the same statistics.
Yeah.
Like,
So-
so it's, yeah, I mean, this context doesn't make her any better. She's somebody who's minimizing the situation for abuse for men.
But here's what I think it's going to reveal. It's going to probably reveal that Dark Matter 2525 believes the 1 in 5 statistics, believes in the rape culture narrative that feminists perpetuate. So he's going to use this to say, ha, this woman was actually talking about something real and you're using her as a meme. Aren't you the stupid one? But the thing is that she's obviously being used because she's been made to be angry and resentful over data that has been, let's say, manipulated to make her feel like unsafe. I mean, if anything, men are definitely in more danger, but the existence of risk is not the same as your reaction to the
Well,
risk.
it's interesting. He talks about how you're not supposed to Borgify. Like, you can't talk for an entire group of people or condemn an entire group of people. He said, he's saying that, well, what he's saying is that you make sacred Black people. And he's saying his interpretation of that guy saying that woke makes sacred Black people and white people. Let's just use women. Makes sacred women is that it prevents people from making universalizing criticisms of women, right? And he's saying, well, who would want to do that? A sexist, right?
Yeah,
but right
of course.
here, when this woman says 1 in 3 women are raped, which is not true, she is creating a negative space that's making a universalizing negative statement about men. So that's okay. Right? This isn't just, 1 in 3 women are raped by persons unknown. No, this is 1 in 3 women are raped by men, all men to blame or all men responsible. That's the next step in this.
Well, remember
Okay.
the context of this is they were talking about, I think this was about immigration or some, foreigners that were, endangering, I guess, or at least there was danger of foreigners being violent or, sexually assaulty or whatever. And this woman's counter to that, because she's defending the brown guys, right? She's saying, well, the men at home are just as bad. So, like, there's no difference. It sort of like cancels it out, right? So this is like another way that feminists use this kind of these narratives to essentially like push their own, whatever their belief systems are, is to say, well, look, Western men are worse. Remember, we made a video about that where you have these the reason why the leftist narrative of threat narrative around men is more effective than the sort of conservative one is that conservative position is that the men in those foreign countries over there are dangerous to women, but the feminist women are saying that the men at home are dangerous to women, which is closer to home, which makes it more effective. So, and they're both wrong. They're like, it's all lies, but the point is that their lie is a more effective lie, and she is evidence of that. She's actually demonstrating how effective that propaganda is on
it's interesting.
on these women.
We don't have to care about the increased sexual violence of a group of people because this other group of people engages in sexual violence. It's bizarre logic, to be honest. And also it's not based on its premises are false.
Yeah. I mean, if you're made to fear men, which men do you fear more? The ones that are in another country that you'll probably never visit, or the ones that are like living in your town?
But unless they're immigrants, then you have to fear them. You can't fear them.
No, then you can't fear them anymore, right?
Yeah, which
All right.
okay.
I know.
Let's
it
hear
doesn't
what he
make
has
sense.
to say.
Let's play the rest of this.
I want you all. I love you all.
This woman did not get triggered or belligerent or even a fraction as excited or angry as any one of us has ever been before.
Okay, is that actually the entirety of the clip? I mean,
He
honestly,
says it's short, but I mean, like, so what if she's not like yelling and screaming?
I didn't actually see the specific
frame.
Yeah, and it's interesting he chooses this one instead of all of the other ones where they are genuinely.
What about
yelling.
Big Red?
Yeah, exactly.
I think Big Red is on more memes than that woman is.
But he just.
What about the chick screaming at the sun when Trump was being inaugurated? What about her? That's a big one.
You know, he chooses the one that might be one still where she looks like she's legitimately spitting venom. And the other thing is maybe she just calmed down because these guys were like, hey, okay, can we take it down a notch? That doesn't mean she's not responsible for that moment of looking like a demon. You know, like if you don't want to become a internet meme, don't go out in public and look like a demon. Even if subsequently people calm you down, you still had that one moment of looking like a freaking demon.
I mean, yeah, like what does he want us to do? Purge the internet of the images of that woman because she wasn't as triggered as it looked? I mean, that doesn't matter. Like you know what? When you overanalyze memes like that, I mean, like, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing?
I could see dark matter constructing like a 50,000 word meme explaining to us all why this meme is inappropriate. And he could make it in the shape of the woman looking like she's about to spit venom. Okay, let's go.
Let's keep going.
If you look at the comments section, you'll see that everyone openly realizes it and admits it and feels bad for how she was immortalized. She was the only one in the argument actually offering statistics rather than emotions.
I don't even know who was arguing what. How the hell do you, like, I couldn't even tell which position these people held. And incidentally, she may be offering what you think is statistics, but they were wrong. 1 in 3 women are raped? No.
Did she die from having her image put on the? Did she die from that? No. Why are we talking about it?
Yeah, exactly.
What about Kyle Rittenhouse when he was in a courtroom crying and lefties were putting up pictures and turning him into a meme? Did he die? Yeah, it is a woman. It is a woman. I'm sorry.
It's not the same. All men are supposed to be responsible for women.
Yes.
All men are supposed to protect women. If they see a woman doing something stupid, they need to divert their gaze, or they need to save her without touching her or telling her what to do. You know, it's men need to be responsible for women. I'm going to hold men to that standard. And I'm not going to hold women to any kind of standard. Who cares if all the women sharing the Kyle Rittenhouse meme, mocking him for crying, and then turning around and saying, why don't men cry? Who cares about all of them? Who cares about all of the men who become memes? That's not what's important, Brian. What's important is that women are protected and men protect those women. And we can't recognize that.
How many Hail Marys do I have to do?
You have to do 1 billion. You can't recognize that as having an effect on the greater world. Like, we have to hold men to higher standards of women's protection, but we can't recognize that we're doing so. And we can't recognize that men are actually responding to being held to those standards, because that might be an insult towards women.
Yep.
Oh, good Lord.
All right, let's play some more.
Pop open his skull. I'm guessing some steaming oatmeal.
But he's Dark Matter 2525, the big brain atheist guy that makes those really smart cartoons where he points out hypocrisy.
I wish you would meditate a bit, because my God, he gives off such an aura of menacing anger. No
Yeah.
offense, like I generally don't get too concerned about angry men, except when you can feel it just below the skin. You know what I mean?
Well, the
Just-
point is to be a monster, but have it under control. It's like. All right, let's play some more of
like
this.
riding a bike.
frame in which she made a funny face. Now, her entire existence is encapsulated by that.
Okay, welcome to the
That's
internet.
How
Yeah, I know. Oh my God. Won't somebody think of the women?
absurd the anti-SJW movement became when they sought offense. Even a single frame was enough for them to latch onto, was enough for them to convict and condemn you. Suddenly, around them,
You are
you had to
convicted and
walk.
condemned to being a meme. Jeez.
What is he? Okay, so this is you know what he's doing here, right? I know he's using big words and sounding really smart, but all he's saying is, "I'm not mad, you are." That's
Yeah,
all
but-
he's saying.
Oh, he's
Like,
saying something a
You're-
lot more. He's
You
saying,
mad, bro? He's saying you mad, bro, because like essentially people saw that interaction, and then by the way, when that was going on, there were lots of videos of like feminists losing their shit in public or arguing with people in public about stuff and and making ridiculous claims like 1 in 3 women. That's a ridiculous claim. That's not a statistic. That is a ridiculous claim. Like if 1 in 3 women was true, okay, I wouldn't be able to drive from my house to the food line down the street without seeing a rape. like that's how absolutely insane it is. Like, you know, the rape capital of the world, which is the Congo, I think, that even those numbers are way lower than 1 in 3. Even there, you wouldn't see it that often. But this woman spits that ridiculous statistic, and Dark Matter 2525, the 1 billion IQ super atheist, he doesn't even think that that's ridiculous. He says, well, that sounds like data, so I'm just going to support it. And when people take all of these clips and they make memes out of it, because essentially it's not because we're mad, bro. It's because we think you're ridiculous and we're clowning you and you don't know how to react. So your whole thing is you must be mad. No, it's not hard to make fun of you because you have ridiculous beliefs about the world, about reality. And that's all it is. So nobody's mad. And I'm sorry, but the only thing that makes me mad is that you pretend as though you're saying something profound because you're like sitting in front of a mic with a lot of followers. Your ego, my friend, is way out of control. I'm sorry, Allison, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it goes beyond the you mad, bro. I believe Chaos for You 728, he's saying, my queen, I must protect my queen. Yes. He is essentially saying that the anti-woke is bad because a woman became a meme.
Yep.
Unfairly. She was unfairly memed. Despite the fact all the men who get unfairly memed by the people who are on the other side, this is evidence. This felony memeing is evidence that the anti-woke side needs to be disbanded. They need to pack up their shit and go. Like, no, you
Stop
pompous
memeing her.
asshat.
She had data. I also believe in science.
Okay, let's go. Let's finish.
Let me check the time here. Let me see.
Oh yeah, and also guys, send in those super chows. Feedthebadger.com / just the tip.
Yeah, nobody sent anything in yet.
Yeah, something.
I guess you guys don't really feel strongly about this particular content creator. Maybe
it's Sunday. Everybody's just like, eh.
Yeah, it's true. All right.
Upon the thinnest of eggshells. What's especially funny about this meme is that the source material originally came from the Alex Jones channel, and we all know how calm and collected Alex Jones is.
Yeah, I mean,
that my friend, that is righteous anger. I don't know what you're talking about. So you can take that and shove it.
Is this the entirety of his argument?
Yeah, you
Woman
mad,
got
bro.
memed.
I will eat your ass.
Memes exist. Women most affected. Thank you for your
You know,
contribution.
it's
Dark
funny
Matter
too. It's funny
2025,
too because
25.
Alex Jones is a massive meme. Is he
Yeah.
butthurt about it? Is he angry? Should we protect Alex Jones from his own memes? Like the woman, the feminist woman? Because he's saying that it's not fair that we treated her that way. And then he goes on to show an Alex Jones meme, essentially, of him yelling, you know, and he thinks that that's like a counter. It's like, wait, but Alex Jones has been memed way more than that woman has. Does he need protecting? Is anybody going to protect Alex Jones? Anybody? Protect Uncle Alex. Okay, anyway. This is Alex Jones out of context, obviously, but like he's playing a character, and that's okay.
The anti-woke had become obsessive, hypocritical, lacked self-awareness, and
What?
incredibly easily offended.
What are you
talking about? Easily offended? Oh my god. It's like it's no you. That's his whole video. No you.
No you, and also memes exist. Women most affected. Like, is this the entirety of his damn argument? I mean, what is his argument? Shall people stop criticizing woke? Like, because the people on the internet found a funny still and memed it? Like, so I am supposed to stop criticizing the march of this collectivism into the destruction of individual liberties in order to support basically a corporate agenda, a corporate government collusive agenda. I'm supposed to stop criticizing this because some woman got memed? Okay, can we apply that to like immigration? If one woman gets raped by an immigrant, does that mean we have to reverse the whole thing? When graping is a bit worse than memeing.
Well, I think that let's play some more of it. I think I know what's going on. So
oh, you do?
And
okay,
yeah,
I
do. But let's keep going.
Today, the Anita Sarkeesian business model is extremely successful in the opposite direction. She became the model for the very people who hated her guts. Now we have reverse Sarkeesian.
No. People hated her guts because of her behavior. Okay?
Because she lied.
Yeah,
and
because
people don't lie. They don't like liars.
Yeah, okay, so she lied, but also she's been doing very well for herself. Very well for herself, aside from that sort of regrettable incident where she married herself.
She doesn't even need to make videos anymore. She literally works in the industry now. Facebook, I think it was Facebook or Google, they named a room in the offices after her. She's doing just like her grift works. Like, I know he's going to accuse the right of grifting because he made that up. The right of grifting. He's going to accuse them of that.
Accuse the anti-woke, which
that's the same thing. But I mean, he'll call it the same thing, Allison. Like, to him, anti-woke is basically far right, Christian conservative, patriarchy, whatever, white supremacy. It's all the same thing. We're just part of that, Allison. Accept it. We're part of it. We are in the far right.
Unfortunately, I get
camp.
But I'm unfortunately I get a lot of shit from them too. Incidentally, I've been arguing
because they're not a monolith. It's because
I've been arguing with a lot of presumably Christian people who insist that the men involved in the 100-person marathon, arranged and contracted by a woman, are just as responsible for the existence of that event. And I'm like, no. They are.
Yeah, well, it's like I've been trying to say for a while. The so-called right is not one thing. It's basically all of the people in the non-left, and that's why you fight with them, because they're not really on your team. They're on their own thing. But the left frames them all as the opposition, so they put them all in one camp together. That includes you and me and most of the people watching. And we just have to just recognize that. And just be like, okay, so I mean, lots of people have talked about this too, but I feel like we're going on a
let's
bit of a tangent. So yeah, let's finish this. Oh, I got a super chow.
Great.
From Meredith G. She gives us $5 and says, subjective offense about a meme isn't an argument. Oftentimes, the best way to deal with a meme is to lean into the joke. Yes. What have we found out is women have no sense of humor. No, they don't. Thank you, Meredith. Really appreciate it. Well, you know what? I bet if I found that woman and I asked her how she felt about being a meme, she might be upset about it, but maybe by now, because that meme is like 5 years old, she would have gotten over it and said, you know what, I think it's kind of funny, right? This guy is getting upset about it. It's these men, these white knights that come out and they're like, oh my God, you're hurting her feelings. What if she does herself in? What if she Minecrafts herself? I don't think she's going to do that. I think she's going to move on and get over it. Hell, she might have even like grown out of that phase and said, you know what, I was wrong about all that, because she was wrong. So, but I don't know. One can hope. Anyway, so yeah, we're the ones that are angry. We're the ones that are butthurt. We're the ones that are grifters. That's all bullshit. There's a really great video made by this guy named Mentis Wave explaining how the supposed right-wing grifters don't exist, because in order for you to be a grifter, you'd have to be taking advantage of the status quo. That's how you get paid. So like, if I didn't want to live in an apartment paycheck to paycheck, I'd be a feminist online and I'd make fuck tons of money, especially as a brown guy. I'd cash in on that shit, but I have integrity, so I'm not going to do that. That's what a grifter is. But anyway.
Keynesian media critics who consume movies and video games with the objective to actively seek out whatever in them can be construed as being woke.
Yeah, so
and
what?
they are
That's
legion.
aesthetic
The
preferences.
critical drinker, nerdrotic, the quartering, heel versus babyface, etc., are all
fucking
reverse
pronouns.
Sarkeesians, but far more fanatical
Yeah,
than
but
she
they
ever
don't
was.
have
Oh
influence
my
over the industry.
God. Yeah,
Are you
right there.
bloody mad?
They're
don't
the
have
same thing.
They don't have influence over the industry. She's in the industry as a consultant, making creative decisions. They're just saying, I don't like this as a consumer. These two things are not the same, sir. False equivalence. Let's move on. If do you have, is there? Do we
Well,
have to go through
okay.
another 23
No.
minutes, or do you
So
have time codes?
no, I do have time codes, but we jumped ahead a couple times. But there really isn't much else. He basically goes into. I could jump ahead to this bit where he talks about a hypothetical critique of Aliens and Terminator 2 if it were released today, illustrating how any content can be framed as woke with enough ideological scrutiny, highlighting the absurdity of some critiques. And so he uses that to make his point that like these like I don't know why he got on that like tangent where he talks about movies and like these video game critics, these guys online. They're just really sick and tired of the subversive media trash that we've been getting for the past 10 years. I mean, if you don't agree that that's been happening, like you can just tell me in the chat. Like I think it has, and I think it's obvious. And like it's specifically designed as an attack on masculinity. And by the way, it is a direct product of feminist critique like Anita Sarkeesian. So when Anita Sarkeesian was criticizing shit 10 years ago on her YouTube channel and getting speaking engagements and was doing presentations and visiting, various game developing companies and doing consultations, all for thousands and thousands of dollars, by the way. Tens of thousands of dollars. She was actually changing the industry, and now the industry has shifted a little bit. I think it was always going in this direction. She just kind of like pumped the gas on it, and then the consumers, or like the community that consumes these products, which is men primarily, were like, this doesn't look anything like what I like. I don't think I want to support this anymore. And some of them were like, I think I'm going to tell other men that this shit has gone to shit because of these ideologies, because of this stuff being spread in these industries. And he's saying, oh, you're turning into her. And it's like, no, she changed things, or people like her obviously affected the industry, and we're reacting to it. And we don't even, like you said, Allison, like these guys don't have any power. It's not like Critical Drinkers getting invited up to fucking Paramount to like help work on the new Star Trek. Like they're just saying shit on the internet, which they have every right to do. And more than that,
lots of people who are frustrated with it because this is a top-down. This is absurd. This is like the logic here. is like going to the French Revolution. Well, maybe that's the wrong analysis. But going to any peasant revolution and saying, you peasants have as much power as these nobles who are making top-down decisions about your life because you're congregating in a group and complaining about it. Are you freaking mental? She is making top-down decisions about these creative things. And I get to be squeaky because I am a woman. So shut up in the special chat. Look, she's making top-down decisions for consumers of these products.
Yeah, she does consulting.
And
She worked with Neil Druckmann.
In the audience who do not have the power that she has, because if they did, just one of them would be able to reverse her decisions, complaining about how the things that they love have changed. These two things are not the same, sir. Not the same at all. You are looking at somebody who has institutional power to change the product, and you are saying that she is, or people who are complaining about it on the ground have the same amount of power. Are they changing the product? No. The only power they have is to stop consuming it.
Well, there's
That's
one
it.
other really important thing too that he won't address. Anita Sarkeesian was lying, and these other guys are telling the truth. And he can't accept that because I guess he has some weird postmodern Europe, you just have an opinion and I just have an opinion, bro, attitude. But Nerdrotic and Heels versus Babyface and me and lots of other people that are talking about what's going on, they're not lying. They're telling the truth. They're looking at what has happened to J.R.R. Tolkien's work. What is going to happen to C.S. Lewis's work when Greta Gerwig takes over? What has happened to franchises like Terminator and I don't know, countless name it, like whatever it is, Lord of the Rings, right? When they critique that, they're not just saying this is sexist against men and here's why. They're saying this is bad because it's going against the canon, or it's going against, it's like shitting in the face of the original creators, and it doesn't respect the source material. It's completely abandoned, like whatever it is, right? The hero's journey, whatever. That's what they're saying. So they're saying something true. And Anita Sarkeesian is lying, or was lying, and still lies because she just wants to profit. I mean, even like basically woke dudes like Thunderfoot could see that. Like he made countless videos about her because he was lying. It's not because it's just a difference of opinion.
She's a liar and she has institutional power.
Yes.
This is not the same as Critical Drinker being part of the audience that's having to consume what she's manipulating. She has top-down power.
Yeah, my Night Motorcyclist said CDPR and The Witcher is changing because of their initiatives on hiring only women. Like, that's another franchise. So The Witcher was this, you ever read The Witcher books, Allison?
No,
I know you like to read, but I mean, they're very popular Polish. They're very popular Polish, like, dark fantasy novels. And they made games based on them, extremely popular. And now they're making a new one, and they're completely changing the canon because they're making Ciri, who is I think Geralt is the Witcher, and Ciri is like his daughter. And women can never be Witchers. Like that was like written to the canon originally. It's not possible, and they're just making her into a Witcher now because feminism. That's it. That's why. Like if you can just throw everything out and just say, put a woman in it, make her lame and gay, then that's just feminism doing its thing. And if you point it out and you say, yeah, this is wrong.
You're just as bad.
That somehow you're just like Anita Sarkeesian, even though you're literally telling the truth. And that's what matters the most.
This is an example of intersectionality and this man caping for corporations.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is it.
And they will, and they'll be like, "We got to buy the product, guys."
This is saying a person who has influence over corporations and is making decisions on the product and is basically, within the corporate decision structure, is more legitimate than the people complaining about what they're consuming and not wanting to consume it. So he's essentially saying that consumers must consume what the corporations tell them to. Goddamn, this is THX1138. Did anyone ever guess that Lucas would hit on the right dystopia in the dystopia suite. Like we'd be George Lucas. He would be like, "Yep, this is what we're going to end up in. We're going to end up worshiping the state in a psychotic bureaucracy of enforced consumption."
Yeah.
Like that.
And this, by the way, Henry Cavill, who played The Witcher on the show, he left the show because they were abandoning the canon. Is he also just being just like Anita Sarkeesian now?
No, I mean the critics of Anita Sarkeesian.
Oh yeah, well no, but Henry Cavill left because he didn't like the direction the show was going because they were going against the way it was written. And Henry Cavill is one of these people that really cares. He's an actor. He played The Witcher. He played Superman. And he's one of these people that really cares about being true to the source material.
He has less control over this than Anita Sarkeesian's. The Anita Sarkeesian and all of the consultants, the corporate consultants that she represents, the star has less control over the product than they do. And this man is saying, how dare you complain? If you get angry, you're just as bad as Anita. No, sir. Okay,
all right, let's play the last thing here. I think
use the word finish.
It's all right.
Nobody believed her.
Now, I could go on and on and on and on, but clearly the point is that the timeless classics Alien and Terminator were bastardized by woke Hollywood sequels nobody asked for. All right, that's enough. You get the idea.
All right.
You need a shower.
He's basically trying to say that if you applied the same lens of critique to Aliens and Predator or Aliens and Terminator 2, that you would also, find it to be woke.
No, and he doesn't understand. It's not that there were female characters. It was that these characters were defined by their actions. And also, I think that Sarah, in the Terminator, the second Terminator, she did
Sarah Connor,
she did start backsliding into some feminist nonsense, and her son was like, please. So it was even sort of little.
Yeah, right. She was threatening Miles Dyson and saying it was men like you that created the atomic bomb. And then he was like, because his mom was out of a mental institution. I was like, well, that seems in character for her. But I will say this though, the one thing that I think should be pointed out, those movies were subversive in their own way, and to not recognize that it doesn't mean that the movies can't be enjoyed. Like I love those movies. But they are still progressive for their time. And it's okay to recognize that. That doesn't mean anything. I'm not triggered by it. I own them on DVD. I have the metal box for Terminator 2. I think it's a great movie, right? But that you can also acknowledge that, yes, these feminist themes were there. It's just that James Cameron was a lot better at putting it in his films than modern filmmakers are today. Where they would and then James Cameron dropped the ball on the last Terminator movie, whatever the hell it was called, when they brought back Sarah Connor as a super grandma, and they had what's her name from that show you used to like so much. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Cameron or whatever.
Yeah, Mackenzie Davis. Okay, but
yeah,
let me push back a little bit on that. The original Terminator, she started off as sort of like a ditzy, I think, not waitress or maybe secretary. And she actually had to earn any kind of toughness.
Absolutely.
So did Ripley, and she even started off slightly tough because space trucker type. But that's the idea that they progress in their skills, they earn their skills through their actions and choices, and even the fact that Ripley sort of had to have the cat to kind of add to the sense of peril and the fact that she had to be presented as a protective figure of something. I would say, I mean, if it's feminist, it's the kind of feminist where maybe it was the kind of feminist that I was, where you focus on the idea of women's actions being as important as men's, their moral choices being as important as men's, and the necessity of their responsibilities being equivalent to men's. If not equivalent, if not directly equivalent, then at least equivalent in terms of personal sacrifice. Does that make sense? And that would be a feminism that I would have gladly continued to be a part of until I realized I was the only one. I I was literally the only one. When I was that feminist who said women's responsibilities their rights should be commiserate with their responsibilities. So there should be, if women are allowed to have control over men, they should be responsible for men's protection, right? That kind of thing. When I was calling myself a feminist and that was my feminist position, I looked around and I realized that I was completely alone. And then I also realized that other feminists who believe that women don't have to have responsibilities equal to their rights were using the existence of women like me to pretend that that was what feminism was. And that was like that made me upchuck a little in my mouth and say, nope, I'm not being part of this bullshit anymore. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's keep going.
Well, I mean, that's basically it. I could just read the last bit that he ends on.
Sure.
So
And
yeah,
I do have one thank you to give.
Oh, good.
Unfortunately, Richard hasn't. So we and if you want us to give you an on the air thank you, please put in your support before the end of the show. And once again, that's feedthebadger.com/support. So let's do it.
All right. So, okay. So I'm just going to read this bit here because this sort of like sums up what I think is going on. And this is, I'm afraid it's going to get a little bit theological only because Dark Matter 2525 built his channel on atheism and not on social justice or feminism. But what you will find as you dig into atheism, it's really just secular humanism. That is it's going to be feminist. Like that's sort of like an inevitable consequence of atheism itself. This is what atheism plus, for any of you old heads that remember, this is like what killed the atheist movement, whatever that is, online was the feminists, because they were like, well, we need some kind of moral hierarchy. Let's put women at the top or something. And that's kind of how you got it. And Dark Matter 2525, his brand is like based in his secular humanist viewpoint, his agenda in that way. So if anything even starts to look like it's becoming like a resistance to that, then he's going to like hit back, and he's going to hit back in the way that he knows, which is essentially to, call them all bigots, right? So here's what he says. And if you want, I could play the clip, but he goes on for a bit. So now I could go on and on. It's an analysis. He's talking about the woke shit. I'm going to jump ahead here. Now, if you don't want an agenda-driven critique of movies in either direction, you can look at Jeremy Jahns or Red Letter Media to give a more objective and knowledgeable critique of movies, but not the people who are constantly on the hunt for wokeism so they can feed outrage to their audiences. Because, that's what when we point out what's wrong and like people are like, oh yeah, that explains it. That's us feeding outrage. That's not us explaining to people, yeah, this is coming from, this like commie agenda, and this is what they do, and they're destroying things that you love on purpose.
Let me get in here for a second. So I'm guessing that he would consider somebody like me and my analysis to be anti-woke. Although the thing that I point out is that woke minimizes and trivializes the decisions of the groups of people it supposedly advocates for. And what I mean by that is when you watch these shows, the decisions of the white cis het men always carry more moral weight. They're always more interesting. They always have more consequences. I mean, even in the re-envisioning of Star Wars, who had to save the day at the end of the day? Even if he was a cynical, blue milk drinking mess, Luke still had to step in and sacrifice to save the day. Because at the end of the day, it's the men. This seems to be the role of the men. Even in the final episode of the trilogy, of the sequel trilogy, Kylo Ren, had to step in and save the day. Who ended up being the most interesting character in the Barbie movie? The one who with the most interesting dilemma that actually had something of a character arc? Ken. Why? Because you can allow male characters to be morally wrong, to make mistakes. So you can actually invest in them as a full human being. And this is something I said to a woman who was arguing persistently that men are solely responsible for pregnancies because they control ejaculation. Now, whether or not men do actually have conscious control over ejaculation, or whether it's a reflex, and whether or not that's actually true because you can actually get pregnant just by having sex without ejaculation because there's sperm and pre-cum. Let's set all of this aside. There are a whole bunch of choices that women make that result in a pregnancy being carried to term. You have to just completely like, oh, no, I don't care about them. Just flick them into the garbage in order to come to the conclusion that men are solely or primarily responsible for pregnancy. You just have to not care about women's choices. And there is a lot of not caring about women's choices in woke. And that offends me on a cellular level as a woman, because I know how important the recognition of those choices is to me as a person, to my understanding of myself as a person, to being a full human being. All right? And that is my criticism of woke. You can shit all over that as much as you like dark matter 25-25, because I'm sure you are yet another man who thinks that the consequences of women's choices should be appended to men's, so that men get to have all of the consequence, all of the importance. They're the ones that cause everything to happen. They are the alpha and omega. Yeah, fuck off. And go meditate. You're so freaking angry. It's unpleasant.
All right, so let me continue. Jumping ahead a little bit more. He says, so yeah, 10 years ago, I jumped on the anti-woke bandwagon ever so briefly before I realized what it actually was. An obsessive, hypocritical ideology that was rooted in demographic hatred. Much respect to the people who never jumped on board that bandwagon. You're way ahead of the curve. So, okay, you're all bigots, guys. That's basically what he landed on. Oh, I figured it out. You're all bigots. Now, if you were on it until more recently, well, at least you found your way off eventually. It takes a lot of integrity to admit when you're wrong. Okay. Especially after being wrong for several years, we should always be willing to forgive and welcome.
Was he ever anti-woke?
He probably was for a bit, because see, when the progressives, the wokes, the SJWs, the fucking Marxists, whatever you want to call it, when they became really, really ubiquitous and obnoxious, he was probably like, yeah, or they started denying, like, biological reality. He probably felt the need to say something just because it was making him look bad. But now that he thinks like, he's on the losing side, because let's see how old this video is. How old is this video? I just want to look now. When did this come out? 2 weeks ago. So yeah, now that he sees himself in the position of losing because the election, then now he's emboldened to double down, because these people operate the most from a position that they perceive as beneath or weaker. That's when they're strongest. So when feminists lose, they think they win because now they get to complain more, because they have something to complain about. So, but let me finish this, because I know you want to say a lot, but all right.
I want to say a little bit. Yay! Okay. All right, everybody's in. We got lots of thank yous to give, but yes.
Now, if you're still on that bandwagon, what the fuck are you doing? Get your shit together. Now we even have people who were prominent atheists like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Hersey Ali crying about the wokeness boogeyman, to the point that some of them are even claiming to be culturally Christian or even outright fully Christian now. That is the money shot right there, guys. That's his problem. More and more, as our country or our world has descended into chaos after what's happened in the last 5 years or 6 years, which, I was going to say 5 years, more and more people are turning to some kind of spiritual answer. Ayaan Hirsi Ali abandoned her atheism and became like full-on Christian. And Richard Dawkins has said, well, I like to think of myself as a cultural Christian because his country is being overrun, right, by Muslims, essentially. And they're having an existential crisis. And dark matter's problem is not the fact that the UK is going to have like tremendous suffering coming up as a result of unmitigated immigration, or the fact that more and more people are going to church because they're trying to find some spiritual answers or something else. That's not his problem. It's not what caused that. It's the fact that they're abandoning his religion. which is atheism.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
all right, but let me finish this. That's how shallow the nature of this beast has become. But why Christianity? Well, because they're not buying into real Christianity, the Christianity of Jesus Christ, which is very woke and concerned with the downtrodden and marginalized. Another bullshit misrepresentation. When Christ says you should take care of people, he doesn't say vote for the socialist government. And people donate, like more conservatives donate than liberals do in general, like in large numbers. So again, he just doesn't like us. That's it. He just doesn't like us. They're buying into the modern, commercialized, propagandized, far-right version of Christianity because they think it's a bulwark against wokeness. It's really sad to see. It's like watching a starving person voraciously eat poison. So that's it. That's what it ultimately comes down to.
Yeah,
That's what it comes down to.
I would
So-
imagine that Jesus would focus more on charity as a personal choice, because if it's forced, it's meaningless.
Exactly.
And-
Well,
and
it
that
is. Like, that's the whole thing about Christianity. That's why it has to be a choice. It has what is it?
Freedom of will, free will. at
Yeah,
the core.
free will as a central premise, right? You
Yeah,
have
it's
to
interesting,
choose.
isn't it? It's
Yes.
interesting because we still frame everything in terms of men having free will and women not. And yet free will is a huge, in our culture, free will is a huge component of being recognized. It's human. So what does that mean, really? Like, what are you idolizing when you idolize women, but you take away their free will? Like, anyway, it's just, I'm gonna point something out. I never finished the sequel trilogy for Star Wars. It's actually astounding what
You
Abrams.
watched all three of them?
I watched all three of them in the last week, back to
Mm.
back. Not back to back, like there was a day between each one, and so now I've watched the original, the prequels, and the sequels, and it's interesting to watch the deterioration. Now, I would argue that the prequels, what happened there is Lucas is not a character director. He also seems to struggle with narrative beats, like strong emotional beats. J.J. Abrams is sort of good at that. Unfortunately, he has other problems, but this is what I wanted to bring out about the sequels. As you watch them, you start to realize that the driving emotion or the driving philosophy behind this is that the writer and the director are white knights giving Rey shit that she has not earned. Like, literally, this becomes a man sitting in a room fantasizing about all the stuff he can give a woman because he's so powerful as a writer, and it's grotesque. This isn't about Rey as a character earning anything that she gets. She gets everything just by virtue of being Rey, by her bizarre meta relationship with the writer who's white knighting for her. And it is really uncomfortable to watch because you know that there's nothing this female character has done for herself. It's all this weird kind of writerly incest between the writer and this character that he's decided to give everything to. When you're writing, you want to try to maintain a sense like suspension of disbelief. And when you're writing a female character achieving things, you want to show those things flowing from her actions and choices. And you want to make sure that you have reasonable amounts of obstacles so that facsimile appears. And then the thing is that people watch and read this stuff and they model it in their own heads. But the problem is, what are you modeling? What are women modeling when they watch a character like Rey? They're subconsciously modeling the all-powerful writer giving this weak, irrelevant female character everything on a silver platter. Whereas when you watch somebody like Ripley in Aliens, you can see the process of her coming to grips with what she's experiencing and making the choices necessary to stand up to it in any capacity in order to survive. You can see the same thing with Sarah Connor. You can see these steps that are being taken to live up to something that's not there in Rey. And when you do that, you're actually constructing a model for women to look at and be able to do the same thing. I don't think it's any coincidence that the highest number of women in STEM was in the 80s and the mid 80s, when these kinds of characters were most prevalent. You took a female character who didn't start with everything, or wasn't just granted everything by the writer, but the writer wrote her believably, developing the skills and decisions to overcome the obstacle that she was facing. And we don't see that anymore. It's all just Mary Sues that are basically the recipients of the white knighting of their authors. And this is supposed to be an advance? Like, seriously? Okay, sorry, I'll get off my
All right.
I'll put that out there. That's not an advance in how we portray women in fiction. It's a regression. I mean, this is basically Ray. Ray is not a hero. She's not a powerful character. She is a damsel being saved from everything by the genie writer. Okay, by the male genie writer. That is not any kind. It's not. I don't even want to use the term empowerment. That isn't even development as a human being. Okay, all right. I will. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Anyway, yeah, that's basically the video. I mean, like, essentially the take home is I don't like the direction of the wind that the wind is blowing. And I mean, I get it. It's, you know, it's scary, but it is what it is. You're just gonna have to adapt.
Yeah,
So,
but
like,
the
this
other
is
thing
like the world you created when you basically told people to like practice social distancing, mask up, get the jab, and like that their men are shit because the patriarchy and that, you know, owning property is bad and you should be forced to give it away and God is dead and all these other things you put out there. Eventually it was going to be a reaction, and that's what we're getting now. And basically you're lucky that it's not really that severe. It's like, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to stop paying attention to what you say. I think I'm going to stop giving you supporting, you know, people with my hard-earned money that hate me for who I am. And I think I'm going to go back to church or whatever it is. And you're like, oh no, Richard Dawkins, no. Well, I mean, you lose, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I'm not mad. Like, I'm not mad.
And I'm not
So-
even, I'm not taking this from the approach of having a horse in the race when it comes to what people believe. I'm just like, yeah, you're making false comparisons, dude. And Anita Sarkeesian isn't the same as the critical drinker. And the reason why is Anita has top-down power over the things that the critical drinker at the end of the day has to consume. And it's a frustrating position to be in, no doubt. Like, all the critical drinker can do is influence other people who are disgusted with the changes that all of the Anita Sarkeesians are making into not buying this stuff. And I
he's
mean,
not even really telling them what to buy or not buy. He's just saying, I didn't like this and here's why. Like, you know, critics.
I'm not even for all of the so-called anti-woke criticism. I think some of it is knee-jerk. So I could criticize that, but I would criticize it on its merits, not just because it's pushing people towards Christianity. What? Okay, anyway. Okay, I want to give out some thank yous. And I do have other stuff that I'm doing today, so I want to give a big thank you to Meredith G for 100 smackaroonies.
Ooh, thank you, Meredith.
Wow.
Thank you, Meredith. And another thank you to Richard Bier for 500 smackaroonies, just by complete coincidence. Woohoo! Thank you, Richard. You're the best.
Yeah, you can go ahead and talk. I'm sorry. This
I
goes
know
on for a bit.
Richard's the best. I was hoping you'd do the Donald voice.
Oh,
Richard,
yes.
This is the best, Richard.
This is the best, Richard. He supports us well. That's what they tell me. I mean, anyway, I wasn't ready I didn't prepare anything.
Well, that's good.
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
It made me happy, Brian. That's all that
Okay,
matters.
well, that's all that matters.
Yeah, okay. All right. So once again, if you like the show, you want to make sure we can keep doing this content, which is pretty unique as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there's anybody who makes the connection at the way that we do between not recognizing men's issues, and all of the crap that we see. And it's going to get worse. It is not going to get better until we start recognizing men's issues. The simple fact is, men are sort of really critical to the maintenance of our society. Anyway, so if you like that message, you want to hear more of it, or you want other people to hear more of it, because we're not going to stop and it's always going to be for free, but feedthebadger.com/support. And if you would like to send us a message, you would like to send us a tip, and with that tip, send us a comment, whatever you want to talk about. feedthebadger.com/justthetip. So once again, that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And I'll hand it back to you, Brian, to take us out.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. You can find the full video that we responded to in the description, so you can watch it yourself. Make sure that I'm not taking Dark Matter 2525 out of context. And please, please, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame. And we will talk to you guys in the next video. Have a good weekend.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.